is on my mind. I am far behind because I find it so much better to unwind. Although there's so much to be done, it could be fun. Do you think there's time for a quick one? The work piles up fast, so many tasks, there's almost no way to catch up. Don't know where to start, it isn't smart, but I've got other plans for us. Although there's so much to be done, it could be fun. Do you think there's time for a quick one? Some say they have seen a gigantic living being, several stories high. We're all going to die. Oh no, run if you can, 'cause Tokyo, Japan is in for big trouble. Looks like Godzilla is real, and once he gets here, he'll reduce things to rubble. There's no time to pack. Run and don't look back. Careful where you hide. Many won't survive. By now, he's well on his way, and you're gonna pay if you don't get to race it. But look up in the skies, we're facing demise from an alien invasion. Yes, he is destructive, and we hope he won't advance. But as it turns out, he might just be our only chance. Save the lizard, he will make a stand. City filled with screams and deadly laser beams. A full-scale attack. Can he hold them back? This is a dangerous place. The city's a waste. The battleground's epic. Both sides are pummeled and fried with nuclear eyes and death rays electric. Yes, he is destructive. We have seen this in the past. But as it turns out, it's an advantage that he has. Save the lizard, he will kick their ass. The air has gotten thick with broken glass and steel and brick. The aliens are no more. Hear Godzilla's mighty roar. And so the battle was won, and when it was done, he retreated to the ocean. And if we're ever attacked, I bet he'll be back, at least that's what I'm hoping. Yes, he is destructive, partly from gargantuan girth. But as it turns out, you know it could have been much worse. Save the lizard, he will save the earth.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the chat. It is Sunday, Easter Sunday, also known as Resurrection Sunday. And I'm going to get some decent light going on in here, because that's what I should do. and welcome to my closet. Y'all, it is Resurrection Sunday, and we are all surrounded by a tremendous amount of crazy, ridiculous cartoon goodies. And I am interested to see how all of you are dealing with the craziness that is Easter. That is like the Easter candy hunts, the festivities, your kids, the stress of the children and their craziness, waking up and undoing their Easter baskets. And I want to say a special hello to a big shout out to the Hall of Famer Donna Lawrence, who is that's that gadget girl over on Twitch and on YouTube, for being my first Patreon patron, and welcome to that Hall of Fame. And if you want to join the Hall of Fame, just throw a buck or two or whatever you see fit into the Patreon. The links are in the description to this video, either on Twitch or on YouTube or on Facebook Live. And I will give you a big shout out in the future live chats. So thank you, Donna, for contributing to my Patreon. Appreciate it very much. It helps to keep this program running, and it helps me to be able to continue to do this stuff for free for everybody who would love to be able to have some kind of help getting through the keto wilderness without having to necessarily hire out a personal coach of some kind. Not to say that there aren't some personal coaches out there that are incredible, which I do believe there are. But most of the personal coaches and trainers and dietitians are not keto friendly. So they're few and far between. And I'm glad to be able to help people for free, and your contributions into the Patreon really help that out. Jackson says, Song of the Day, Hate St. Peter by Flash in the Pan, 1976. A unique Australian new wave song with cool vocals and catchy strings and piano solo. Great. And thank you, Jackson, for chiming in. When I want to give another shout out to that gadget girl for volunteering to moderate over on Twitch, and to Vengeance for his faithful moderation over on the YouTube side. I don't see him over there right now quite yet, but it is Easter Sunday and there are festivities going on. I do understand if people have prior engagements. I am just here. And one of the reasons why I decided to do the title for this video as Keto Help Line is just that, in times like this, today's a holiday, right? So, and there's lots of people who have kids, and the candy is everywhere, and it's temptation all over the place. Or maybe you're a person with seasonal depression, and for some people, Easter is that time when the spirits hit the all-time low, because it's not quite, spring hasn't really come into full effect. We're still in that, what did you call it, Felicia? Third winter. We're still in third winter. And so for a lot of people, seasonal depression hits in, and, any kind of plans having to do with nutrition or whatever tend to fall by the wayside when those kind of things hit. For some of us, we just don't have anything else in the house other than, keto type foods or whatever. But for other people, it just seems like the natural thing to do is just, okay, well, I'm going to screw up for the day, and that's fine. And for a lot of those people, I'm not encouraging you to feel guilty or anything about it. I'm just saying that that it is important to start developing tools to deal with these things. And I hope, for lack of a better term, to be one of those tools. I have been called a tool before. So Anyway, I see Cat Keto here in the chat. I see Jackson here in the chat. And as many more of you join up, I do want to encourage you. There is a phone number down here. You can call with questions. And also, here, let me fix that because I would love to have this be more open. Calling with questions. There we go. And that way you guys can see that I'm serious about opening this up. What, you know, that is not quite right. So I'm going to fix that. I took that off last week because of the Skype, and try to get that going. So now I'm just going to bring it back. And sorry you guys for doing this to you while we're live. I think that's sort of not super classy, but hey, it's live. So anyway, if you guys can see the phone number or the Skype, you can call in. And if you are prepared to go live with Skype, I am prepared to bring you on. I will not be doing video calls today, but I will be taking audio Skype calls. So if you want to call through Skype and ask your questions and cry out for help, that'd be great. So yeah, exactly, Jackson. That's exactly what the plan is. So anybody who has keto questions, we'll call this the crisis helpline for people on a diet who are sitting in front of a Easter basket full of Cadbury cream eggs or whatever. And just to throw something in the mix, there are a lot of alternative recipes. For those of you who were just looking at those Cadbury cream eggs and freaking out, I will say that Colorful Keto with Dory has some great alternatives, because that has been historically her Easter basket weakness, was the cream eggs. And so she came up with a cream egg recipe, and it's over on her Facebook page, Colorful Keto with Dory, and I believe it's also on her YouTube channel. And she has made a wonderful one of those quick delish style recipe videos for the cream eggs. So if you're interested in making a healthy version, a healthy alternative to the Cadbury cream egg, here we go. I think, so I'm reading Jackson's chat here. I think alternative rock musician Beck did keto, but I could be wrong. He's where it's at. Where it's at. Yes, I don't want to be a copyright violation, but yes. I'm actually a fan of Beck, but I do make fun of him for some of his nonsensical lyrics. I think it's kind of funny. And I think it's also, I think that Kanye West dissing Beck for getting an award when he writes these nonsensical lyrics, although he is an incredible, Beck is a great producer. Kanye West is kind of a jackass for dissing him. When the guy has obviously worked incredibly hard as a solo artist to make a name for himself and to arrive on the scene. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, not to get off on a tangent, this is the Keto Health Crisis Line. This is the Keto Help Line. And so those of you who are over on Twitch, we are seeing your chat live in the top section along with YouTube. And those of you over on Facebook, we are seeing your chat messages live in the middle of the page as well on the bottom. And I'll be watching for you. And Kanye needs to grow up. He's an immature brat. Also, President Obama called West a jackass. LOL. Jackson, I couldn't have said it better myself. even though I kind of said the same thing. Anyway, y'all, I wanted to talk to you about, since I typically do some of the check-in type stuff as well, today is a particularly rough day for me. Not because it's Easter, well, partly because it's Easter, but partly because last night I had to work late, and I was asked a favor at work to paint some stripes on the floor. And when we got to the painting part, I had already striped the floor with the tape. And when we got to the painting part, we opened up the can of paint, and it was blue and not yellow. So I had to go over and get some paint. And anyway, this whole rigmarole ended up just costing me another hour or so, hour and a half of time getting everything set up and rigged up. And long story short, I had to do some other work after work. So I knew that was going to happen, but I didn't know how late I was going to be at work. And I didn't get home till like 11:30. I didn't get to bed till like almost 1:30. And when I woke up at 6 this morning, I was intending to get up at 6 and go to church and set up for rehearsal. And I knew that we were going to have some extra songs to do because we were doing a baptism at church for Resurrection Sunday. It ended up being a big baptism. We had a lot of people, and I was really thankful for that. But I knew that I had to do a lot more prep work, so I had to bring 2 guitars, and I had to bring all the setup. So I knew I had to get up at 6. But when my alarm went off at 6, I reset my alarm trying to wake up at 6:30. Well, it turns out I set my clock back, and evidently my alarm was set for 5:30 this morning after it had already gone off at 6. So it didn't go off again, but I woke up at 8 this morning when I was supposed to be heading out the door already. And normally I would be there, somewhere between 8:20 and 8:30. And set up by 8:45 at the latest. So, but then I got there and I had this migraine, I had a caffeine headache, and I had all these body aches, and I was sore from this, what I was doing last night, and all the hustling I had to do at work. It was just a hard day of work, and I'm grateful for having a hard day of work, but I particularly was having a problem because I had to stay up late on a day when I had to get up so early. And then I got there late, and it just didn't make me feel fabulous. I still have that text from last week there. So, and at this point during my day, I took some aspirin. I got rid of the headache for the most part. It's still kind of there. So I wanted to kind of, as a side subject, talk about how sometimes you don't feel great despite being better off than you were before. So Jackson says, does green tea have any healthy benefits at all? Just curious. In fact, it does, Jackson. It has something called L-theanine, which, in addition to the caffeine, which actually works in conjunction with the caffeine, but it helps with mental focus. L-theanine does. I understand that if you take it regularly at nighttime, it can give you some crazy, wacky dreams. But I think that's more like, because you have the mental clarity, sometimes your dreams seem more clear or more realistic or something. But that's a side effect that's been described to me before. So, and if I can get you guys feedback on what does it look like out there on the internet, what does the frame rate look like, the sound quality, everything, are things lagged or whatever? That's great too. I always like to get that feedback to find out how things are going on your end. I can always look at it later, but it's great on this end to know when it's going on. So Also, does health have any healthier chocolate and brownie? Yes, in fact, Jackson, if you're over on Facebook and you go to the BroBryce Health group, I have a recipe thread attached to the pinned post on Facebook that has recipes for some of these things, and I also link to other sites where there are recipes where you can look up some like things like chocolate brownies or chocolate chip cookies. Typically, I find that in the first year of doing keto, people are really, really all about like the goodies and stuff. But after that, it tends to sort of get more toward how do I live healthy for forever, you know. But the sweets kind of tend to wane off after a while for a lot of people. They did for me anyway. For some people, I guess they tend to stick with a lot of the sweets because it's their way of keeping it sustainable, and that's fine. I'm not here to diss any of that. And I'm also here to say, you know what, that's still better than where you were at before you started keto. So today, I don't feel fabulous, but I'm not in some kind of a crisis just because I don't feel great. I know that there are many things about my physical condition, you know, my aches and pains having to do with previous injuries and all of those things. I haven't necessarily been healed of those things, but I don't have the crazy inflammation, crazy chronic inflammation that used to rule my life and make that a day-to-day thing. It's just one of those things where today I feel a little worse than I do most days. Remember last week when I was talking with Nancy, one of the things that I said last week is that when you feel crappy all the time and suddenly you feel awful, awful just isn't that much further than generally crappy all the time. So today I feel a little bit bad. And feeling a little bit bad it's interesting to me because I'm more aware of it. Whereas I used to live like in a way worse state all the time. So I'm okay with feeling a little bit bad once in a while. Speaking about church on Easter Sunday today, how exactly does a Christian baptism work? And how does the water pool or baptismal pool get involved into it exactly? Well, generally, the baptism is really symbolic, and it's something that is commanded in the Bible, but it is not something that saves you per se. According to Christian doctrine, it is something that is symbolic. It's an outward statement of your faith. I got baptized as an outward statement that other people can observe that I declared myself a Christian. So, not trying to bring this conversation into a religious realm. I think that people already know that I'm a Christian. That's why I call myself Brother Bryce, which is where the BroBryce Health comes from. BroBryce, everything that I do comes from. But that's what the baptism is about. It's not what makes you born again, but it is the symbolic gesture in front of people that you're doing that says your basic outward statement of faith. And that's, I do that anyway in my day-to-day living. I don't hide that I'm a Christian. It's on the label right over there. But at the same time, it doesn't have to rule this particular conversation. There's a dance at a local church in about 20 to 25 minutes away that has a baptismal pool. Oh, okay. Maybe okay. Most churches do have a baptismal pool. either a temporary one or a permanently fixed one. Many of them are permanent. Anyway, so if you guys have been thinking about what's in that Easter basket that your kids have been hauling around the house, what your kids found at the Easter egg hunt, I want you to, if you've been thinking about that and it's been getting to you, please say something in the comments about how you're dealing with it. Because your way of coping with the Easter holiday or with any holiday may be helpful for someone else, and how they deal with the food being put in front of them. I had an incident the other day at work where there were some M&Ms being passed around in cups, and I talked about this a little bit on my Facebook wall. And one of the people was offering it to me, and she knew that I was doing keto. And I said, "Oh, no thanks." I said, bacon is my candy. And I just sort of said that just sort of to be funny. But it's true. Bacon is my candy. So she said, "Right on." And this other guy said, "Well, that'll harden your arteries." And I do think that perhaps maybe the last time on the planet that you would choose to speak about someone else's eating and the health or lack thereof resulting from their use of such foods, the last time in the world that you would speak on such things would be when you have a mouthful of M&Ms or possibly Oreos. I had another experience before when someone was, I was on a teacher's retreat, and I had specifically chosen to sit somewhere else other than the general table that a lot of these teachers were sitting at. And I knew that my food was going to set off some questions, and I just didn't feel like it. So I sat at another table, and I proceeded to open up my package of pre-cooked bacon and started eating it with some cream cheese. And someone got up from the other table, and it was a person who actually was my boss. And she came over and sat in front of me at the table with a bag of Oreos, and proceeded to tell me how concerned she was for the kind of food that I was eating. And that was kind of torture for me, because first off, this person was my boss, so she kind of had me behind the 8 ball. And she proceeded to talk to me about this food that I was eating while eating this bag of Oreos. And I really just wanted to shove her face into the bag of Oreos. And I don't mean that to be unkind or unsympathetic or anything like that. But I think that people need to make better choices about when to speak up about someone else's food. And myself included. There are times when I overreact. And so this instance at work with the M&Ms, it did manifest itself in my overreacting, because basically when this person talked about my saturated fat or whatever hardening my arteries, it basically kind of took me back to that instance years back when this person kind of cornered me and was expressing their concern with the bag of Oreos. So my tendency has been to overreact. It's something I need to work on. And I did end up apologizing to the guy for the way that I overreacted. I basically just told him that he was ignorant and that I didn't, that I basically spent the last few years trying to prove people like him wrong. So, Jackson chimes in, says, probably Reese's peanut butter eggs. Also, I own a 45 of a funk song called Peanut Butter by Twinning and Lenny White from 1979 on Elektra Records. It was the band's only hit, peaking at number 83. That would be the time to sing Bow Wow Wow's 1982 hit "I Want Candy." I remember that song. I'm not gonna say it, but yeah, I didn't want candy, and I honestly didn't want all these people to want candy. And you know, our tendency when we're on a diet or even a nutritional approach is to think that our way of eating is the best way ever, and that everybody else should do it, and that they're wrong if they think that another way is okay. So what we need to be is we need to be accepting of people's sensitivities, while at the same time have our own opinions grounded in solid science. I have done my very level best to try to make sure that what I think about nutrition is based in the science that I've actually studied on it. And it's not based on media spin or news articles, because I find that news articles have spin that doesn't reflect the science. For instance, you'll see a magazine article in a very famous, prominent magazine some 30, 40 years ago saying that bacon and eggs is bad for you, with the bacon in a frown and the eggs as eyes. And then some 30, 40 years later, you see an article in the same magazine with a picture of butter and saying, eat butter. And both of these articles are based on the same sets of studies. It's the same scientific data. It's just a different media spin on it, following cultural trends. So when you find things like that, you do not, it should solidify your resolve that you should never ever listen to media spin on a topic. You should actually look it up for yourself and find out what you can find out for yourself. Anyway, we are at 4:41. I'm going to do another book giveaway because I promised I would. And in fact, if I hadn't promised last week, I don't know why this is not staying in, but if I hadn't promised last week that I would be doing this again this week, I probably would have taken today off. But I do have 2 books. Ooh, that was not nice. I have 2 books today. Well, 4 books to choose from. So if you are interested in a book, please let me know in the comments here. And the first person to respond is welcome. Hey, yes, Sherry, I see you over on Twitch. Welcome to the chat. I don't think I saw the comments on Facebook on this video. The chat is not lit up. I have the live chat up right now. It's not showing that. Maybe you're not commenting on the live stream on Facebook. I'm not sure. But I do see you over here on Twitch. And I know that sometimes the restream does not pick up all the comments on YouTube and Twitch, but when I do the actual live stream on Facebook, I do actually capture that video right off of the actual live stream that's happening on Facebook. So if you don't see it there, it's probably not on the actual live stream on Facebook. Hey, Andy. Good to see you, Andy. I'm going to do this book giveaway here, and then I will talk directly. So we have 4 books to choose from here for anybody that's watching that hasn't won a book in the last 4 weeks. If you're in the U.S., I will mail it to you free of charge. Now, if you're not in the U.S., then you have two options. Number one, I will ship it to you for free as long as you are at my front door when I bring it to you. So you have to fly to the United States to get it if you want it for free. Otherwise, you can pay the shipping in the form of a Patreon contribution over on Patreon. The links are in the description to this video, either on Twitch or YouTube or Facebook. And if you pay the shipping, I will mail you the book for free. And in some cases, these are books that you probably might not even find in your country, in some cases. These are all thrift store finds, so they are used. Some of them have some wear and tear. You might find some notes scribbled in them by previous owners. But I do try to screen them for being in decent condition. So this is the Dr. Atkins new carbohydrate gram counter. I do believe this is from like 2003. Let me look at the date. I like to look at the dates because it gives you an idea how current it is, and for nostalgia purposes, for some people they're interested. So this is 2002 is this carbohydrate gram counter. Now, when you're talking about raw foods, those are still the same carbohydrate counts as they were 300, 400, 500, 10,000 years ago. But Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis, MD. He's a cardiologist who wrote a book on how to get rid of wheat, get rid of grain altogether out of your diet, and why science supports that idea of getting grain completely out of your life for your better health. And then we have Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It by Gary Taubes. And this is a wonderful book by a brilliant science writer who I would love to get on this show, by the way. Even with my limited audience, I would love to get Gary Taubes on here and have you guys ask him questions. Gary Taubes has been a great speaker, and if you ever want to find out what this guy is all about, look him up on YouTube. You find all kinds of talks by him, and he's brilliant. So this also has the appendix in it that teaches you how to get started with the food list and everything. So why we get fat and what to do about it. And I'm just going to leave that headphone out. Corinne Netzer writes The Complete Book of Food Counts, and this is a little thicker book. And this one is from, let's find out what the date is on this one, 2003. And so these books are some fantastic resources for you to get started with, and really happy to see if any of you guys are interested in getting the book. So yes, Wheat Belly has some really good stuff in it. And I had the DVD series, which I sent off to Jonathan Frensley as a gift. And man, my headphones are not staying in. I think it's because I pulled this thing out. I'm going to fix that. Yeah, these are heavy. So, if Andy's out there watching, I just wanted you guys to know that, you know, of all the nuts to crack, the one that I haven't really found terribly easy is to make an argument that someone should change from a diet that they're comfortable with to one that they don't particularly like. There's a hard argument that doesn't sound very loving, and that is, you know, some people say that switching out carbohydrate for fat, you know, I like my carbohydrate, I like my potatoes, I like my bread, I like my starches, I like my sugars, or whatever. You know, there are sweet alternatives to sweets. There, you know, there's always cauliflower mash for those things. But a lot of people is just like, man, it's a lot of trouble to go through to, you know, to not be able to just eat bread right out of a package that I can just go to the store and get. But I want to tell you about something that's really inconvenient and troublesome in your life, and that is, hey, I see Vengeance is in the house. Shout out to our lovely, Vengeance moderator over on the YouTube side. And then we have over on Twitch. Yes. Is quinoa keto? No. Donut Grok says, is quinoa keto? No. Has a very high glycemic index. It just turns to sugar. It's a grain. It's an ancient grain, but it's a grain. Now, if you were, I don't know, I think that some of the paleo alternatives tend to regard quinoa and buckwheat or ancient wheats as something different, but in ketogenic nutrition, the science is dictated by your insulin response, and the insulin response with quinoa is that it just turns to sugar. So whether it's a pseudo grain or an ancient grain or whatever it is, it turns to sugar. The high glycemic index dictates that it's just not a keto food. So, and that's really what dictates whether it's keto or not. For instance, peanuts are considered keto, but because they're a legume and not a nut, and that legumes typically have a high omega-6 to 3 ratio, peanuts being particularly high omega-6 to 3 ratio. They're not particularly keto-friendly because a lot of people who are on keto are doing it for the anti-inflammatory effect. So I wanted to talk about like the alternative to being inconvenienced by your dietary preference. The alternative is, like, for instance, with type 2 diabetes, it always is progressive, right? It always gets worse. It never gets better unless you take the carbohydrate out of the equation. It just always gets worse. So that the natural progression of things is vascular integrity issues. So you have extremities with bad blood circulation, perhaps having to have femoral bypasses or something like that to fix the bad circulation in your legs or perhaps in your hands. Bad circulation leading to, if you got a blister on your toe, it can turn into something worse. Retinopathy, because the vascular integrity in your eyes is not great, and so eventually you end up having glaucoma is a thing, but also retinopathy is where the bleeders just are uncontrolled and they have to use laser surgery to shut them down. And a retinopathy basically means that the tissue surrounding the retina, on the edges of the retina, as it gets narrower and narrower, starts to die off because of bad circulation, because of vascular integrity. Entirely preventable because type 2 diabetes is purely a dietary disease. It's not something that's nearly as hereditary as mashed potatoes and pancakes and waffles. So, if amputations of extremities, which is really like that's the reason why people like Timothy Noakes and Dr. Gary Fettke and other physicians, especially orthopedic surgeons who are tired of cutting off people's limbs because of type 2 diabetes, and they realize, hey, there's an alternative to this. You can do something that does not mean that your type 2 diabetes will always progress to this. You can do this instead, and I don't have to cut off your limbs. How about that? And so when they start teaching about that, the establishment gets in their way. So it's not helpful for them in their careers. Anyway, so I think my argument for the ketogenic lifestyle or any kind of diet to be inconvenient for you or to be troublesome for you is to say learning how to live in a wheelchair is also inconvenient, and learning how to read Braille is inconvenient. So I make those arguments because type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance is always progressive. It's never not progressive. There isn't an exception to the rule. How fast it progresses varies from person to person. And it varies based on your response to your insulin, and it varies depending on how much carbohydrate you take in. Because some people who have been really listening to the American Diabetes Association for decades, they are eating 300 plus grams of carbohydrate a day, when in actuality, the only kind of diet that a type 2 diabetic should ever be eating is a ketogenic diet, a low carb, high fat diet. And I can't say that's true of necessarily everybody, although I can speculate that I could probably make a pretty good case for it. But in the case of type 2 diabetics, there is not another approach that they should be doing. And if you are working your way toward a ketogenic lifestyle and trying to wean yourself off of medications, know that you should always be doing that with the supervision of a doctor, with the help of a doctor. And if you don't have a doctor that's friendly to that, you need to get a doctor that's friendly to that, because any other doctor is basically going to prescribe you right into a hole of other medications, and more of the same medications. So your dependence on that medication is also progressive, as well as the disease. So thank you, Sherry, for bringing that up. And Vengeance is asking, how is your Easter going? And sorry for not answering your questions right away, Vengeance. I noticed that last week that I wasn't answering your questions as fast as you would like. But my Easter is going better now that the most of the Easter festivities for the day are over. Yeah, Kat, I'm not seeing anything on the live chat, on the live Facebook chat there. Maybe I'm just missing something there. I got your message, the first one, but maybe I need to open up another feed over there. Hang on a second. Open up in a new tab. And we'll take that tab and bring it over here so that maybe I can see it. Oh my goodness, there's tons. I'm totally missing it. Thank you, Kat, for bringing that up, and Sherry for bringing that up. I don't know why it's not coming up. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can switch these out and use that instead. Hey, there we go. So, Kat, thank you. Thank you so much, you guys, for bringing that up. That is a crazy thing. How was my Easter dinner? I didn't have an Easter dinner per se. We had a potluck thing, and that was mostly stuff that I couldn't eat. But we had a few items that we could eat. And yes, I see you. There you go. Made chia pudding. Nothing artificial. You made the chia pudding that Dory made, huh? Earl Reed, thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry if I missed you already. Anyway, I realize that what I say it doesn't sound terribly loving or sensitive in the way that I said it, but it is the reality of the situation, is the gravity of the situation. And you know, when I decided to do keto, I had to come to a place where what I had to do for my life was so much more important than it was so much more important than saying, you know, I can do things my own way. Hey. Anyway, I'm really trying to cooperate with this chat thing over here that is not cooperating with me. I'm not sure which way it's supposed to scroll, but Cat Keto says, so many illnesses that have been attributed to hereditary illnesses are not. They're metabolic, and we need to address that as such and individualize this way of eating. So I am really sorry for not seeing all those messages. I don't know why Facebook did that to me. I had the live stream open, I had the chat window open, and none of this stuff showed up. But there we go. I'm going to go back up to the top here, and we'll just keep it right there. If I talk to Tony, tell him Vengeance says, you know, I think you can tell him that. Keep it classy, man. Keep it classy. Anyway, we are right here at the 5 o'clock hour, and I am going to run a little long because I started this program a little bit late, and I'm really sorry about that. And I'm also sorry that I didn't get the messages over on Facebook as soon as I should have. Thank you, Facebook, for all of that. But now I have them, and I am loving you guys for showing me that I can't necessarily trust Facebook to do that. So what I'll do is next time I will open up another one over here, and hopefully that will fix things. I wonder if I can pause that, huh? Anyway, you guys are doing a great job keeping your end of the chat live while I'm over here just still trying to learn how the technology even works. How is the frame rate and the sound over there on your end going, if you guys are still watching and not tuning out because I'm rambling on about stuff? So we have the Twitch, and we have the Facebook, and we do have the YouTube, and it is all live. I can see the video at least. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for taking time out of your busy holiday schedule to talk. Andy, if there's one last thing that I have to share with you, it is that my urgency to help people with chronic illnesses is driven by the passion that I have watching the illnesses in my family manifest and watching them suffer needlessly at the hands of doctors who were ill-advised or ill-informed or ill-educated, and feeling that they were powerless to change their own lives in a way that could impact them and help them to live a better, healthier life. I see their health suffering for it, and it is what drives my passion to do this. It is what makes me passionate about wanting to help people do it for free. It is what makes me passionate about wanting to speak up, sometimes even in situations where I feel like it's probably going to make me into an outcast. So my urgency in seeing you reverse your type 2 diabetes is a manifestation of my love for my family, and watching the progression, watching the natural progression of what type 2 diabetes does to people, and what strokes look like, and what atherosclerosis looks like as it gets more and more advanced. So wanting to know more about this nutrition, wanting to do the research, and I know you're a guy who likes to do research, Andy, so I would really urge that you would do research on this to and if you want to debate it, like, feel free to bring up articles to me and studies and things, and ask me about it. I'd be more than willing to go over it with you and talk with you about it. Anyway, you guys have been awesome. Thank you for helping me to diagnose the problem, or, I don't know if we diagnosed it, but we at least got it working. So we have the chat live now toward the end of this program. But we will be back next Sunday when I'm gonna give you a little bit of a spoiler. We're gonna have Dr. Ken Berry, MD, who is a licensed family medicine practitioner in the state of Tennessee, and he has a family medicine practice there, and he specializes in ketogenic nutrition, and he also happens to know a whole lot about hypothyroidism, and he happens to know a lot about Hashimoto's as well. So for those of you who are dealing with thyroid issues or with type 2 diabetes or with anything that, any kind of autoimmune disorder or something, here we have a guy who can give what he believes is a medical opinion. He can't give you medical advice because you're not his patient, unless you are his patient, in which case he can give you one-on-one medical advice. But he can actually give you an official medical opinion on what ketogenic nutrition might do for you, or what other approaches, including medicine, might do for you. So be sure to check back in next Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, and Dr. Ken Berry will be right here, right next to me, giving his opinion on medical matters, doing Q&A, and I want to welcome all of you to join, and he'll be right over here on video, on Skype, and chatting with you guys and answering your questions. So be sure to join us next week, 4 p.m. Pacific time, right here on the BroBryce Health channel, on YouTube, on Twitch, and over here on Facebook Live. We will see you then. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'm going to bring us back out with some more music from Glenn Case. So thank you very much to Glenn Case for the wonderful music, and y'all have a great day. We'll see you again next week. Let's back out with some more music from Glenn Case. So thank you very much to Glenn Case for the wonderful music, and y'all have a great day. We'll see you again next week. With some more music from Glenn Case. Thank you very much to Glenn Case for the wonderful music, and y'all have a great day. We'll see you next week. Music from Glenn Case. Thank you very much to Glenn Case for the wonderful music, and y'all have a great day. We'll see you next week.
Girl, I must confess, you could scorch muffins if you touch them when you wear your evening dress. I need a glass of water, I need fresh air. I tried to get some loving, but the room is like an oven when you're in here. Where the smoke, there's fire, that's what I was taught. And you prove the theory very clearly when you look so smoking hot. With the fireproof gloves on, maybe we could touch. But I've learned that I don't wanna be burning you, are way too dangerous. I'm not blind, girl, I must confess. You could scorch muffins if you touch them when you wear your evening dress. I need a glass of water, I need fresh air. I tried to get some loving, but the room is like an oven when you're in here. Yeah. I'm not blind, girl, I must confess. You could scorch muffins if you touch them when you wear your evening dress. I need a glass of water, I need fresh air. I tried to get some loving, but the room is like an oven when you're in here. so clear. I can't get too close to your flame because I might just